Hello and welcome to Theatre and Tonic for a very exciting Q&A today with Gregory Batsleer, and we're going to be chatting about a really interesting take on the story of Messiah. So, hello Greg, welcome to Theatre and Tonic. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your journey to this point in your career?
Yeah, well, look, nice to meet you and thanks for having me. So I first started performing music as a boy, sang in lots of different choirs, and was very much captured by the ability of music, in particular classical music, to change people's lives and have real big impacts into people's lives. And that feeling that I had probably at age 8 has stayed with me really for the rest of my life, and has become part of my mission, and I guess part of who I am and what I put at the center of my working life is to bring and share that music as widely as possible. So I spent a lot of my life working as a conductor, working with lots of different choirs and lots of different orchestras. But in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, I've become more involved in sort of entrepreneur classical music ventures and thinking about ways that we can expand the industry and thinking about ways in which we can make classical music have more reach. And part of my work has been to work in galleries. I've also produced shows at festivals, and performed in concert halls and at theatres. And me and a good friend and a good colleague, 𝐸𝐬 𝐌𝐞𝐬𝐬 came together and thought, look, let's try and get classical music to reach as far as we can. Let's see if we can look differently at what classical music is, and let's put it into a theatrical context. And we came up with the idea of Classical Everywhere and ultimately this idea of Messiah. So that takes us to where we are today, and we're super excited for what this is going to be.
Absolutely. And you touched on there looking at classical music, because I think a lot of people turn their noses up at it because it's always seemed to be very specific to a certain crowd of people, hasn't it? So is that key to your work, that you try and make people see it beyond that?
Classical music was the original popular music. It's only up until about the 1950s, up until about that point, everybody listened to classical music as the music that they would go to. Now, sadly, it's got this label classical alongside it. I just think it's music. And actually, if you put it on the radio, I bet everyone could be, can have a sort of response to it. Now, what I think has happened is the music that we call classical music has become kind of monopolized by a series of people who think it's only for them. And therefore that elitist and that sort of stuffy atmosphere that people think of when you say classical music, they think of kind of, being told to be quiet or to behave in a certain way. And therefore it's really off-putting. And what we're trying to do with this new venture is to sort of get rid of all of that and say, well, look, you guys do that, but actually we believe in this music to be really powerful. And if we make it in this way, and we dress it in this way, and we do things to it, like put lighting and put dancing and put projection alongside it, then people might feel much more like they can attach themselves to the music. And I think we're really, really, really keen to say that this is for everybody, and it is for everyone everywhere. And that, we think that we are creating an experience for people, of which classical music happens to be part of it. But there are lots of other things as part of these shows that we do, in which we think people are going to have, which is going to capture imaginations and make people have a great time. It's entertainment at the end of the day. It's a great night out. And that's ultimately what we want to try and provide.
Absolutely. So you are bringing a immersive kind of unique experience for one night early on in London at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. So tell us a little bit about why you chose to kind of go for that kind of venue in particular. What made you want to go onto a West End theatre?
So we wanted to try and find a space that we thought wouldn't have some of that stuff that you were talking about in terms of preconceived perception. We wanted to have a space, if we're going to say Frozen's in there, right? And Frozen is one of the best shows in the West End that there's ever been, and everyone goes to see it. Young, old, rich, poor, whatever your background is, people are obsessed with Frozen musical. And I think we felt that this iconic venue was very much the right place, that we could do something that meant we're putting on a show. And where's the best show in town? Well, it's there. So we thought we'd go to the venue that has the best show, and that has actually, is a place that people might be more familiar with. And it's not got the stuffy concert hall environment. The door staff are different at Drury Lane than they are at concert halls as well. So it was really to say, well, let's not try and attempt to combat that bit, and let's go into a space that people might feel more comfortable in. Also, it's just an amazing theatre, right? You know, if you go in there, it's massive, it looks amazing, it's already, you know, all you need to do is walk in there and already start feeling something. And that's what part of our reasoning behind that was, and it gave an opportunity to do things a bit differently, which is one of the things that we wanted to achieve as well.
And is it quite hard then, because it's a one night only performance, is it really hard to kind of have time to work in that space and kind of develop this piece, because obviously you don't know what the acoustics are like or the sounds like, so it must be quite difficult to kind of develop a piece that you can't really go into the venue yet?
Totally. There are challenges, obviously. You know, it's we get in and get out on the same day, and that's really exciting. It's also a bit scary, and a lot of the kind of prep is in the thought and in the method in terms of getting there. The creative team for this show are coming from all over Europe, by the way. It's such an exciting creative team that we've got alongside it, including these guys from Berlin who are creating the projections, Flora Fauna. They're really amazing. We've got probably the most exciting young choreographer around, Tom Greaves. He's just brilliant. You know, so we're doing a lot of rehearsals in advance and we go in on the day. I think what we want to try and create with Classical Era are these unique spectaculars, you know, these one-off opportunities that you come in and it's really, really kind of visually arresting, and the whole show feels that you've been taken on an experience. And then that's it, you know. Also crucially in terms of what our business model looks like, we need to be able to make sure we can move and be flexible as well. So, you know, there's business reasons behind that as well as just being a unique opportunity. But I think ultimately this is going to be one of the best shows in town in December, and it's just for one night. So if people don't get their tickets, then they'll miss out.
Absolutely. So obviously you are bringing Messiah as your kind of chosen story that you're kind of working on. So tell us a little bit about what made you choose that one in particular.
So when people are kind of creating a new show, right, on the West End, so say Andrew Lloyd Webber wants to do a new piece, there's a lot of variables in this. Is the music going to be any good? Is the script going to be good enough? Is it, you know, there's all sorts of things in there. Now, Handel's Messiah has been one of the most popular pieces of music for 300 years. You know, people have been going to watch this piece of music consistently for 300 years. So there must be something about this piece that works, right? You know, and all the great bits of music, whether it's from Handel or Adele or whoever, right? If it's decent, it's going to last time. Now, this piece, so we know at the center of this is a piece of music that has captivated people for 300 years. Second to that, the story, it's basically a musical biopic. So, you know, you watch films about famous individuals from Nelson Mandela, you know, to, you know, I just watched the Elvis one the other day. There are massive biopics that are out. This is a musical version of that, and it's a musical version about Jesus Christ. Now, it's not very religious. That sounds a bit of a silly thing to say, but the piece is more about what humanity means. It brings out themes about love. It brings about themes about sacrifice or conflict or resolution or redemption. So, okay, the story is the story of Jesus, but that's kind of a cool story, whether you believe it or not. There's a lot in it. But the meaning of the piece has much more resonance in a secular society than I think any other piece of music that's been written. So, you know, it felt very, you know, both in terms of the fact that this piece is being performed and being so popular for a long time, but also in terms of the message, it felt very sort of, that it felt very, we felt very confident in that as a choice as where we start with this venture.
Yeah, it sounds like really interesting as well, because like you say, you've got all of the lighting in there, and there's still an element there of like visual effects and choreography. So how did you then did you kind of work with that first and then bring the musicians in, or have you kind of done it the opposite way around? So
the process has been, we choose the piece, and then we choose you know, myself and Louis Hartshorn, who is sort of artistic directors of this, have been, we go, well, what do we want the audience? I always go from, what do we want the audience to feel? We want them to feel entertained. We want them to feel engaged. We want them to feel moved. We want them to have a great evening, you know, a great show. So that, you know, you think, well, what are we trying to get our audiences to feel here? And then what are the elements that we need to do that? Well, let's bring in some dance. The music that Handel's written is so lively. It's got so much to it. So, and people dancing to that music brings the music to life. It brings into the human. Then also gigs. What makes gigs so brilliant? Decent lighting. You know, if you go and watch any decent, you know, artists these days, their lighting show is part of what they invest in. So let's invest in making lighting associated with this. And then what more can we bring to this? What other layers can we add? Well, let's get some amazing projections made that sort of bring this story to life in a different way. And we've also now bringing the spoken word to it. So there are so many layers to this performance. And I would really encourage people not to think of this as a classical music concert at all. It's a gig. It's a show. It's entertainment, and that people, when they come to it, they should absolutely treat it in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree, because I guess as well, like, you're a sister company of Immersive Everywhere as well. So I guess like these kind of immersive kind of opportunities and experiences are something that are really kind of moving forward at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, the immersive market is growing, and I think what we're realizing is audiences and people, the appetite is changing from audiences to want to be more directly involved in something, to feel that they're part of the drama, part of the action, or they're investing in that. And I think this is classical music's way of achieving that. And actually, I think ultimately we need to not segment audiences and just think people want to have a good time, and actually the way the world's going at the moment, that's what we need to be offering people as much as we can.
Completely agree with that one. So obviously you've got some really great musicians, haven't you? So are they kind of all from all over the world and all over Europe, or are they very much like UK based?
So I mean, I have to say we've got a proper world-class lineup that we've got for this show. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better group of musicians and singers and whatever, a part of the team, to be honest. So you've got the London Symphony Chorus, which is this massive choir of 80 who form the centre of the piece. You've got the English Chamber Orchestra, which is the most recorded orchestra in the world. They're phenomenal. They've performed all over the world. And then in terms of the soloists, you've got Danny Denise, who's one of the most renowned and acclaimed sopranos there is. Nikki Spence is this fantastic Scottish tenor who's got so much character and energy. Cody Clattelbaum, he's coming all the way from America. He looks spectacular, sounds just as good as that. And Idino Munch is coming sort of from, I think, from Germany to perform. So it's a real mix of world-class talent that's come from all over the world to make this. But I think it's the dream team, actually, in my opinion, anyway.
And I think, like you say, you're working with people that are not just from England, you're working like European as well as like global. So, moving forward with like the state of the industry, do you think this is like a really prime example of why those relationships are really important and really vital?
We have to be looking that way. Yeah, we have to be looking to build relationships beyond just the people in front of our faces. And I think the way the world is going is we need to be making friends, we need to be making connections. And I think when you begin to cast the net wider, you begin to learn things as well. And, not just sticking with the same sort of teams. I think we want to be going and looking out and seeing where the other talent is. And part of what we want to achieve with Classical Everywhere is to be a sort of centre of artistic excellence, that people can see that some of the best artists, the best talent is under our roof.
Yeah, great stuff. So one final question then for you, Greg. Why should people come and be involved with your project and the production?
Come and be the start of this exciting new movement of performance. This is going to be one of the most entertaining, profoundly moving shows you'll ever experience. And I guarantee it's music that's been written 300 years ago that stood the test of time. And we've now brought it into the 21st century. And it's going to be one of the most spectacular things you can experience this December in London. And I think you should buy a ticket now and join us at the start of the journey, really. That's what I think. It's because this is the beginning of a movement, in our opinion.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Greg. I will leave all of the information about Handel's Messiah on the bio, where you can buy your tickets and get involved. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you.